Hello guys, before we get started, a large thank you to Kurt Rusty Shackleford. This name I can't pronounce, so if somebody in the comments could help me out with that, would be greatly appreciated. Eric QI, Kieran, Rob, Martin, again another name I unfortunately cannot pronounce, Christopher, Beluga, and Fireball Tech for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and if somebody could let me know how to pronounce those two names, that would be fantastic. And a special thank you to Mike Harden Games for their immense support to this channel on Patreon. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so if we come to our enemy here now, we swing at him. As you can see, no matter what angle I hit him from, he always plays the same damage animation. And that's okay, but we want to make it so, depending on where the enemy is struck from, he plays a responsive damage animation. And we're going to do that in this episode by editing the damage collider script and a few other scripts. So I'm going to jump in here now, starting off right into the damage collider script, and we're going to make some logic here right below on trigger enter. We're also going to clean up the script a little bit because as we add on more layers, we want to make everything more neat. So first I'm going to begin by saying protected virtual void, choose which direction damage came from. I'm making this a virtual void just in case we want to change it on any of the inheriting classes in the future. It's not certain right now. It will most likely stay the same. So we're going to need to pass a float for the direction, and we're using a float because we're going to use sine angle. I'll explain more on that very shortly. So basically we're going to need to calculate the direction that we're being hit from in the on-trigger enter functionality. So let's go in here, but before we do that, let's actually clean this up a little bit so it's not too crowded. So right here, we can actually break this down into smaller functions. So you can see here, we're checking to see if we have been parried when we swing our weapon at an enemy. So we can copy this and delete it from there. We can make a function here called protected virtual void check for parry. And again, I'm making it a virtual void in case you want to change it on any of the inheriting classes, but we probably won't, so it's pretty safe if you want to put this one as just a regular void. Now we're going to say if enemy manager is parrying, so we have to check for a character manager. We're going to call it enemy manager because it is the enemy character manager script that we're attacking, and if we are attacking them, they are parrying, we're going to get parried. Next, we're going to actually say here check for parry, enemy manager, and now we're going to actually break down the blocking functionality right below it and make it simpler too, so we can copy all this and delete it from here. And in similar fashion, I'm just going to write check for block. Don't know what we're going to pass yet, we'll see that momentarily. Let's minimize these functions here so we can see what we're doing. Going to say protected virtual void again. This one's probably a safe bet if you just want to make it a regular void. I'm just making it a virtual void in case you want to change anything on the inherited classes. And now this is a mess, so we just need to make this a simple if statement. So we can delete the else if here, and we're going to keep most of this logic. Now that's good. I'm actually just going to copy this and erase it, fix this, and then paste it back in again so it's a bit more neat. So if a shield is detected, if it's not null and the enemy is blocking, then we're going to perform the block damage steps. For that, we need to pass the enemy character manager again, and we need to pass the enemy's shield collider, which I believe is blocking collider, but I'm going to check for that momentarily. I'm going to paste this logic back in here again, so I'm going to go up and check. Yes, we are checking for a blocking collider, so we have that called shield. Let's pass that there as well, and we're also going to need to pass the enemy's stats. So a character stat manager variable, we're going to call it enemy stats because it is the enemy stats. Now, you'll notice we have return, or we had return on these functions because this was all in one large function, and if you detected a shield or a parry, you just simply return. Well, because we're actually breaking this down now into finer functions, instead of calling a return on the bottom of these, we're actually just going to say, we can say, make a bool for shield has been hit, or you have been parried. So what I'm going to do is every time we open this damage collider and we enter on trigger enter, we're going to reset these parameters, but we're going to have parameters for an enemy shield being detected and us being parried. So I'll show you what I mean very shortly, just real quick. I'm just going to read this over and make sure I have, yeah, okay, so right here, let's make a bool, shield has been hit, and let's just keep that as it is, initialize it at false, and then bool has been parried, initialize that at false too. And then down here, when we are actually running an on trigger enter for the first time again, when it's refreshed, we're just going to reset these parameters to false just to make sure they start off on false because we're not starting off detecting a shield or being parried. And then if we check for the parry and the parry passes, we're going to simply say has been parried is equal to true instead of return. And if we check for the shield and we do detect a shield hit, we'll say shield has been hit equals true instead of returned. And the logic will continue being processed, but we'll know that we've struck a shield or we've been parried. And then before we get to the final damage step, we can simply say if has been parried, return. If shield has been hit, return. And that's all there is to it, really. Make sure you put if has been parried above shield has been hit. That's not vitally important, but it should come first in the order of operations because we're checking for a parry first above all else. Okay, so if you want to, you can break this down even further and even make this part its own function. I won't do that yet in this video because we're going to move on now to actually detecting which angle we're actually striking the enemy from. So let's make a float, and we're going to call it direction hit from. And we're going to make that equal a vector3.sine angle. That's important. Make sure you sine angle, not angle. And we're going to pass the forward transform of our character manager, which is what we have on this script. When we instantiate our weapon, we're supposed to pass that variable here. So that's us, the person holding the sword. Character manager.transform.forward, and then we're going to pass our enemy manager.transform.forward. And then we're going to say vector3.up. So this is going to give us a value, an angle value. And from this, we're going to be able to determine where we're standing in respect to the enemy when we strike them. And that will actually allow us to basically know when we're hitting the enemy from what side, and so on and so forth. So we're actually going to incorporate this now. We're going to say choose which direction damage came from, and we're going to pass our direction hit from variable. And now we're going to start plugging in some logic. We need to do a couple things first. So let's make a string up here, and we're going to call this current damage animation, because we're going to change this damage animation and pass it on to the take damage function depending on where we are being hit from. In the future, we can expand upon this even further. We can also like edit the damage animation depending on the weapon type you're using, so we can make it a heavy or light damage animation. But for now, we're just going to calculate the direction and push the enemy in that direction. So we're going to say if direction is greater or equal to 145 and direction is less or equal to 180, then we're going to say we're being hit from the front. So we're going to say current damage animation. Is that what not defamage? Yes, current damage animation is equal to, and I believe I call these animations damage underscore forward underscore 01, but this should be the damage animation that shows your player getting pushed back, like as if I were to pretend you're shoving someone from the front, like you're just pushing them on the chest. So they're going to obviously get nudged back a little bit. You're being damaged from the front position, so you're getting pushed back. Think of it like that. Next, we're going to say else if direction is less than or equal to, I think it's 145, I believe, and direction is greater, let me think about this for a second, or equal to minus 180. I'm going to have to correct this. I could be mistaken, but I think this is right. Then we're going to say current damage animation is equal to damage.forward underscore 01 again. So from these two angles, using sine angle, it will give us a forward damage angle. And then we're going to say else if direction is greater than or equal to minus 45 and direction is less than or equal to 45. I believe this one now should make us play the you're getting pushed from behind animation. So we'll say current damage animation equals damage underscore back 01. And now we just have the left and right to do, and then we're finished. So then I'm going to say else if direction, and then we're going to say greater than or equal to, and I believe this is minus 144, and direction is less than or equal to minus 45. This should be the, I want to say right. Current damage animation equals damage left. We're going to say right. I'm going to have to reverse these after 01. I think these last two I might be messing up. We'll see. And then we're going to say else if direction is greater or equal to 45 and direction is less or equal to 144. Current damage animation equals damage underscore left underscore 1. So basically, these numbers are going to change depending on where you're standing when you strike the enemy. And we can actually just throw debug.log on the top here before we start, so you can actually know. And if these are incorrect, you can edit them yourself. You might have to tweak them a little tiny bit, but these are the values that I used, I believe, in my prototyping, and they worked fantastic. So now instead of saying damage animation equals 01, we're actually just going to pass our current damage animation. And now we actually don't want the damage animation to just be random ever. We want it to be calculated on the direction, so we're going to change some stuff in our scripts too. But first off, I'm just going to go into the animator here now and drag in these new damage animations. So before we just had damage 01, we can keep that there if you want, just as like a fallback, where if you, for some reason, can't detect the angle properly, you can just play that as a default animation. It's here somewhere, but I'm going to drag in my 4 new damage animations, which is forward, backward, left, and right. Just trying to find where I put that damage animation. Okay, there it is. It's up there. So I'm going to drag all these in one by one. I am going to tick foot IK. That does make them look a little bit better. That makes their feet stick to the ground nicer when they're being displayed. And I'm going to drag the transition back to the empty state on each one of these. So basically, again, what we're doing is we're standing in front of our enemy. When we strike them, that calculation is going to detect where we are standing and facing in respect to them. And it's basically going to give us an angle. And depending on the angle, we're going to play a damage animation. I'm just going to put debug.log here. I suggest you do the same, just direction. So you can actually just test this now and see what's happening. You can see what number you get when you're standing where to an enemy. So I'm swinging here, and I've got an error. Ignore the animation event error. That's because that's an animation from my other project. That's nothing that you should have. Okay, so we're missing something. I'm going to assume it's the character manager. Let me see if we actually call this anywhere. We're supposed to initialize on the damage collider script. No, we use it, but we don't ever call it. Okay, that's not good. So I guess I forgot to do that. So over here on the character weapon slot manager, right when we initialize our load right and load left weapon damage colliders, just right in the middle here, wherever you want, say right hand damage collider dot character manager equals character manager, because you should already have the character manager variable on this script. Make sure you do that for the left and right damage collider functions, because that is very important to damage calculation. Make sure you don't accidentally put the right on the left, etc., etc. Save that, and you should be good to go. Now let's go back in the game and try it again. Okay, so also before we do that, let's erase this damage animation equals damage 01. Erase this on the character stats manager, and erase it on the enemy stats manager and the player stats manager. The reason why we're doing this is because, again, we're going to further develop our combat system now in the future, especially where we're soon adding archery. I don't ever want to default to a default damage animation. I want to give damage animations specialized animations depending on the weapon or the angle you're hit from or the event, etc., etc. So when that's all done, you're going to get some errors. Delete the damage player script if you still have it. That's an old debugging script. That's just useless right now at this point. And then everywhere that you get an error, all you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the damage collider script and change this from private to protected, the current damage animation. And since these other scripts actually inherit the damage collider script, we can just put a comma here and say current damage animation. And that's it. Now, you're going to want to make a default damage animation for certain things until we actually add this capability into the other weapons like the bomb damage collider and spell damage collider. But right now, just put this here and this will stop you from getting errors because we're going to further expand upon this in the future, so don't worry about it right now. There we go. Okay. Now, if I go into the game here again, let's go over to our enemy. I'm just going to crank up his health a lot so I don't have to constantly come back and reload the game when I kill him in 3 hits. And let's run over here now and see if this is working correctly. The only one I'm not sure of is the left and right. I think the others might be on point. So if I come down and hit him from behind, yep, it pushes him forward just as intended. Excellent. Now if I go to the right of him, yeah, that one, see, that's backwards. I'm going to guess this one is backwards too. Yes, it is. Okay. So if I push him from front, though, he should go backwards. Yes, he does. So the only thing we have wrong here, at least in my case, is I have these two mixed up. So this should push him the other way. So what I'm going to do is just change this from damage right 01 to damage left 01. And I'm going to change this from damage left 01 to damage right 01. And we should be good to go. I'm going to save that. If I hit play. Okay, we're back. Now I can push him forward. Yes, that works fine. I can push him backwards. Yes, that works fine. I can push him to the left. Yes, that works fine. And I can push him to the right. Yes, that works fine. Okay, guys. This little functionality adds so much life to the game and makes everything feel so much more responsive. So in the future, on damage animations again, we're actually going to add further weapon classifications. And when we add heavy attacks, or when I finish adding all the attack types, we'll actually play different animations too depending on the attack type. So for example, a heavy attack will push someone further than a light attack. So we're going to add that in too. But right now, this is just a nice start to the system and it gives a lot of life to the game. You can honestly just use this alone and it would just make the game feel and look a whole lot better. So if you guys did enjoy this video, please don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment. It genuinely helps my series out so much when you interact with the videos. And if you're feeling like a super champion, do check out my Patreon below because that helps me even more. And I will see you guys in the next one when we further expand upon this series.